Hey, what's up here, everybody? Before we get started into this lengthy video, I want to try and get some information out to everybody who is kind of like us. Our church now is live streaming, and there's a lot that I've learned over the past few weeks of mixing for broadcast. So before we get into it, I'm going to put some links here at the beginning, some timestamps that you can go and watch specific sections. I recommend you watch the whole thing through, but to review it, if you want to come back, you can watch specific sections and use those timestamps to help you out. Now, most of my mixing I'm going to be doing in these Apple iPhone earbuds because a lot of my people are listening on a phone, maybe on a laptop. So this will translate much better than these studio monitors that are behind me or something with a subwoofer. Occasionally I'll jump to these Sennheiser HD headphones, but for the most part, these Apple earbuds are where it's at. When I reference my mix later on, you'll hear me as I close up. I actually stick it on my phone. I listen to it in my hand. I throw it up through Apple TV on my TV because that's where most of my customers are going to be listening to this music. And I make sure it translates there. Then I stick it in my truck. I listen to it on my, on my monitors in here to make sure it sounds good as well. But the most part, done on these Apple earbuds. So think about where your music's going to land as you get started, and that will help you through the whole process. But that's it. Let's dive into it right now. Here we go. So let's take a look at what I'm doing here. I just opened this track up. We recorded it last night, and so it is bright and early this morning. So just open the track up. You can see we've got a number of tracks in here. We've got some percussion tracks here: kick, snare bottom, overhead, floor tom, ride. Got an electric guitar. We've got a mono pad sound coming in. Got bass guitar, acoustic guitar, two vocals. And I've got this pastor slot in here, but there was no pastor. So this track is fresh. You can see my main volume is all the way down, and I don't even have things lined up right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the beginning and end of each set of music. So I'm going to bring my end of my track over here. I'm going to fit timeline to contents. I'm going to remove this pastor's track, and then I'm going to make these guys just a little bit bigger. Let's bring up our volume to 0 and actually select an output. There we go. All right, now this way I can at least hear things. And this is exactly what I've got off the board here. So let's see.
Rolling thunder, thy power throughout the
Let's find out when this thing starts. Can barely hear the acoustic guitar. I'm just going to turn it up a little bit in the gain. So I'm coming over here to the gain. I'm going to be in the gain later on, but I'm just going to turn it up some so that I can actually hear it. And I'm going to turn this pad volume down just so that I can hear when these songs start and end. All right. I think it's going to be here when the acoustic guitar starts, but let's just double check. It is. Okay. So we need a little bit of this blank space beforehand so we can fade the song in. So that's good. I'm going to put a marker up here. Just call this song set 1. And then I'm going to clip everything. I don't need anything that happens before that part. Let's see. Now we're going to come over here. All right, so we've got a prayer in here. So let's back this up just, I'm not going to even mark it. This has to be a 2-song set. So we've got prayer there, and then this song is going to come over here, the second song, and it's going to end somewhere over here. So I'm going to give them a little time to fade out. And then I'll stop there. We will delete the rest of it. Put a marker here and say song set set one end. All right, let's do the same thing here for track number 2, song set 2, I should say. Let's see, it looks like we're somewhere in here. All right, we got electric guitar starting up here somewhere. And I hear acoustic guitar also. Let's see what we get. Again, I'm just bumping these up a couple dB just to see where everything starts. And then we'll go back and actually set gain structure in a second. Alright, so that's that. Back this up to the beginning of the pads almost. Alright, this is song set 2. So again, nothing, I don't need anything before that. So I'm going to come up here. We've got just that little smidge from when I started the recording last night. So we'll take that out. I'm even going to take this marker out. I'm going to go to the end of the tune and see what we get back here. All right. So right about there, I'll pull in the end marker to right there. We will clip this, get rid of the end. Okay. So now I can set my contents into this viewable window and we're good to roll. So the next step in the process is to set gain structure. So what we're going to do is pull up our mix window. I'm going to go to this truncated view here. And I'm going to bring everything back up to 0. So these pads are going to come back up to 0. And here's what I'm looking for. I'm going to turn the main volume down because we actually don't even need to hear the instrument. We just want to look literally at what we're getting. And so I'm going to find a big portion of a song where everything is kind of banging pretty loud. Find a chorus here. And let's see. I want this to be kind of consistent. This chorus over here to the right is probably the biggest portion of what we get. All right, so my kick is here. We're going to start with that. And what I'm looking for when I turn this on is I'm looking for the steady peaks to be up here at -6 on this level meter. So let's just hit play, see what we get. All right, so that's pretty low. So I've got it selected. I'm going to come over here to my gain area. I'm going to add 3 dB. Still not enough, so we're going to go to 6 dB. Still not enough. We'll go to 9 dB. I kind of move in 3 dB increments here. Now we're starting to get somewhere. All right, let's go to 10 dB and see what we get. That's looking pretty good. It's right around -6. All right, let's look at our snare bottom. Snare bottom looks pretty good right there. Let's double check it back here. There's some taller spikes. Okay, I might bring that down 1 dB actually, just so that we're not spiking too far above. My overhead mic is next. On this one, I'm just going to start with 6 because I can see it's pretty low. Okay, that's pretty close. I might bring it up. Let's just try 7.5, see what we get. We'll back this up. Yep, we'll stick with that. All right, let's go to floor tom. I got these couple floor tom hits here, so I'm just going to try and grab one, look at it. Okay, that hit -6, so that looks good to me. Now my ride over here, Let's just hear if I'm actually hitting the ride. Yeah, so I'm full on the ride there. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. I'm just going to say 6 dB. So what I'm looking at now is looking at this, looking at the size of the wavelength compared to everything else that we've already set. It's pretty clear it needs to go up. So I'm still looking at the levels, but I can see we've got to go up even more. Let's go up 9. Let's see what 12 looks like. Still pretty controlled down there. Let's go 15. I'm gonna back this up. Get some big hits just before that. Let's see right there. Okay, so we are going over -6. So I'll back this down to 13. We'll call that one done. Let's move on to the electric guitar. Now we've already got this at +5. I'm going to bring this up to +8. He's really controlled. Let's go up to +10. That should end up being an okay volume for him. All right, let's go to the pads. I'm going to back it up here. Pads, as you can see, are just a straight fluctuating tone. That did make sense, did it? Straight and fluctuating, not a bit. It's early in the morning. All right, I'm bringing that up 9 dB. That looks pretty good. We're going to end up duplicating that track in a second anyway. All right, let's hit the bass guitar. Bass guitar, we're going to go 3 dB. See right here, we're still under -6, but it just peaked up to -6. I'm going to give it another dB and a half, so 4.5, and we'll call that one good. Let's see about this acoustic guitar here. Acoustic guitar sitting around -12. Now we've already got that at +5. Let's just see what 8 looks like. All right, we're going to add to that. We'll go up to 10. Let's see what 12 does. All right, we'll stick with 12 because acoustic guitar also is going to end up getting duplicated. Let's hit some vocals here. All right, we're going to look at male vocal. We'll go 3 dB. Yep, 6 dB. It's pretty close. Let's go 7.5. All right, let's go back to the same spot and go to the female now. We'll go 3. We know it needs to go up, so we'll just jump to 6. All right, 9. Now we're getting somewhere on our wavelength. Let's see here. She's going to sing. All right, this looks good right now. So we've got set gain structure on these tracks. Now we're just going to shrink this down a touch, and we're going to take these and duplicate them. So the kick is 10. And this kick needs to be 10. -1 on the snare. -1. Overhead 7.5, 7.5. So we're just kind of duplicating these to get the whole track set up right. 0, 0. 13 and 13. This is going to help us so much later on. 10 and 10. When you're running a front of house gig, you obviously set gain structure first, and the same thing applies here in post-production, because otherwise you don't have a chance of getting your levels up and getting some good quality audio coming out. So this step is crucial. All right, we're almost done here. 9 dB for our female vocal. I'm gonna hit save. All right, now let's just listen to what we've got. We'll turn this volume back up to 0. We might get some peaks, but that's okay. We're just going to hit the play button. All right, not mixed at all, but that's what we've got so far. The next thing we're going to do is, in this case, I'm always going to close the inspector window, and I'm going to duplicate my pads because I want a stereo sound. So I duplicate track with events. Okay. And I'm going to label these left. Oh, this should be right, actually. And left there. Acoustic guitar, I'm going to do the same thing. Duplicate track with events. Okay. Now, one of the things I want to try and pay attention to is where is the guitar player, in this case, on stage. And they are on the left-hand side, so I want my left-hand track to be the main track. What I'm going to do is come into the right track. I'll open this inspector window back up. And the acoustic guitar track, I'm going to delay by 14 milliseconds. I'm going to do the same thing with the pads, but just to add some variety, I'll use the left track on that one because it's not a person that we'll see on the actual screen. Okay, so now what that's done is just give us a slightly delayed sound by one of them, which doesn't do much until we actually pan these hard left and hard right. The next step in my process, though, is I'm going to set up a couple of groups here. So I'm going to open back up my window. I'm going to make a drum group. So I'm going to select my tracks, add bus for selected tracks, and hit up drum bus. I could do this ahead of time, but I did not. So we're going to just do it together. Pad bus. We're going to get acoustic guitar bus. We're going to get vocal bus. And then we're going to add two effects in here as well. Add effect. This will be the Vox verb, which is going to be a long verb. And then we're also going to add another one, which is going to be band verb. Okay. I like to do some coloring here so that I know what I'm working with. This is just me. You can do whatever you want with your tracks. I do want to move my bass guitar over here next to the drums because that's where I normally live with it. Acoustic guitar. I'm going to take all of these and move acoustic next to electric. Then we get our keys, or pads in this case. All right, I hit save. Now, next thing we need to do is actually set these levels. On the acoustic guitar, I generally want to drop the left one, which is our main one, by about 3 decibels. And then we're going to do the same thing on the pads. So whichever one was the main one, which was our right one, I'll drop it by 3 decibels. Okay. Now we have no EQing, we have no compression, we have no nothing except for raw signals coming in from the stage. So what we're going to do is actually go ahead and add those. Now I have a good bit of presets that I've saved so far, so I'm just going to look and see what I get here. This is my cajon, stream cajon. I'm going to add these quickly and then turn them off. Let's do this way. This can be a little bit faster. All right, snare bottom. Do I have? I do. Stream snare bottom. Excellent. Turn that off. Stream overhead. So this is just me working with these over the past couple weeks. I don't have anything yet for floor tom, so I'm just going to add, in this case, some stock plugins. I'm going to add the Pro EQ, and I'm also going to add the compressor. But like the others, I'm going to turn it off. All right, ride. I know that I don't have anything for ride because I forgot to record it last week. Okay, so that's our drums. Typically, I'm going to run... Do I have a drum bus? Band verb. I do not. Okay, so typically I'm running the HEQ, which is by waves. Sorry, not HEQ. The H compressor. There we go. Running the stereo version. I'm going to turn it off too because it doesn't need to be on right away, but it's something that I put in the mix. Next, we go on to bass, and I believe I've got a preset for her. Stream bass. We'll turn that off. Electric guitar for this guy is just going to be EQ, just in case there's any low rumble that we're catching from his mic, because it's a live mic. All right, acoustic guitar. I don't see anything there, so I'm going to go to my Pro EQ. I'm going to not compress. Let's see here. The EQ here we're going to set on our main one. We're going to copy it over and duplicate it to our secondary one. And then here on the main bus is where we will actually compress. And so I'm going to run one compressor there. And then I'm also going to add in, which do I want? The RVox, not RVox, but Renaissance Axe. There we go. And we want stereo for this. Okay. Now I'm going to turn those off. So all I'm doing here is adding in all the plugins that I need. For the pads, I don't need any EQing there. I will run a stereo EQ here on the main bus for the pads. Vocals. Last night we had this guy running, so I'm going to turn those on and back off. And then I'm going to use a preset for female vocal, but since I'm turning all these plugins off, it's going to allow me to just add them and double check them one by one. And I think that is it for there. Now I've also got some reverbs that I've set in to like here. So I've got my long verb for vocals, and then the band verb. There we go, stream band verb. Okay. So at this point, we have all of our plugins in here. They're all turned off. We even have some main insert plugins. So here's main insert. I'm going to get a handful of plugins there, and my main post I've also got here as well. All right, but I'm going to turn them off. First thing I need to do is double check my bass sound. So I'm going to find and loop some bass in here. Here's our pink bass sounds. And I'm going to just hit the loop. We've got our output so we can hear what's going on. I'm going to solo the bass. And let's make this thing smaller here. And we'll shift to this look. All right. So what I've got here is that I am actually compressing to start out with before I EQ. So let's just hear what this sounds like. So you can hear that plucking attack. So I'm running a really fast attack on this and hoping that cures some of the aggressive attacking. Let's see what this compressor's doing here. So this is also catching the next fast stuff that gets past that. Let's see what our EQ looks like here. So she's got a lot of growl in there. Let's find that growl. So that's all the growl. So let's just bring this thing down some. And then I've got this C6, which, okay, so this is what I've been using. So sometimes in these mixes, when they are going out through broadcast and people are listening on their phones, they have no subwoofer at all. You still need the mix to translate. Well, in the softer portions, you lose the presence of the bass guitar if all you have is a bunch of low end. So I'm keeping typically the attack in there, but this C6, you can see how I've got it set up in here. This one band, if I hit solo, is 493 hertz, and then we've also got this other blue one here that's kind of overlapping at 835. Those together kind of grab this middle section, which is very similar to what I was taking out here. Do you see that? So this is 780. And what this compressor does, is a multiband compressor. What this allows is that the top end articulation will come out all of the time. However, when it gets too aggressive, it will be removed to help even out the sound. So let's listen to what this thing sounds like here. So this is bypassed. On. So that's helping to tame some of that stuff pretty quickly. All right, that's an acceptable bass sound. It's much more even. We need to do our kick next, which is going to be this cajon. So remember, we don't have anything turned on yet. We're just going to go hit this loop here. So this is what it sounds like without. This is just an SM57 shoved in the back of a cajon, being played with a kick pedal. So do you hear how I'm adding this top end articulation? Let's see what this... Interesting, that's kind of a nasally sound there. All right. So these top end frequencies are what are helping the kick be heard. So this would sound okay in a full system, but you got no top end articulation. So by adding in these top end frequencies, that's going to make it sit in the mix and actually be heard. So let's compress this thing some and see what we've got here. So look at what I've got here. I've got 26 millisecond attack and a really fast release. So I'm just looking to tame down these spikes. You can see I'm taking out 8 dB. I probably want a little bit less than that, maybe 5 or 6. Raise this threshold up. Okay. But now I'm going to bring it up about half of that, so 2.5 dB. Okay. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my vocals and I'm going to get a real rough estimate on my vocals here. And you'll see why in just a second. My male vocal is my lead vocal. I'm going to start with the EQ. And let's see what he's doing.
Resurrecting me, in your name I come alive to declare your victory.
All right, let's talk about these moves here.
The resurrected, your name.
So my low cut.
Name is victory.
Cutting out all that low end rumble.
Your praise will
It doesn't change his vocal timbre at all.
Christ our King. Your name.
All right.
Your name
Now this,
is victory.
hear that rumble?
Your praise
So I'm just turning that down by 3 dB.
to Christ our King by your Spirit.
All right, let's hear this. This is 1.6. A lot of nasaliness, kind of telephone sound. Just bringing that down 2 dB. And then I'm adding some air back in up on this top end, 5, 6K and up. All right. So we had that at 5. Now we're going to compress. All right, my first compressor on the vocals typically is going to be really fast attack, really fast release. And it's just to tame the spikes that come through. So in this case, running a 2-to-1 ratio. Okay, and we've got a pretty quick, we'll even turn this down even more. Let's get to, say, 9 milliseconds. Turn this gain down and see what we get. My release is as fast as I can get. I just want it to come on and then go away. All right, here we go. It seems aggressive. Bring the sound back up 2 dB. This is without. So you can actually hear his fluctuations when he says, "Oh, praise." That's just what he was doing because he's strumming guitar somewhat aggressively in there. So I'm trying to smooth that out by taming the beginning of his word and then bringing the back end up. So let's listen to this. All right, then I've got a second compressor I'm going to run. Here we go. This next one is going to be pulling out kind of your standard 3 to 4 dB. You see the ratio. Let's bring this up to a 3-to-1 ratio. There we go. We'll loosen up this attack a little bit, say 20 milliseconds, and a standard release. And so we're just going to set this to be pulling out 3 to 4 dB.
The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come.
So here's what we started out with.
To declare your victory. The resurrected your name.
This is where we're at now.
Your name.
All right, now here's the trick that I've been telling people about recently. This True Verb is what I'm using, but you can use stock plugins as well. This is going to help us get the microphone off the person's face. If you go into a studio, let's do this real quick. I think I got these pictures up. Oh, I don't. All right, let's look for Studio Singer. Okay, and what we're going to see is some space between the microphone and the mouth. Microphone and the mouth. Whether these are real people or not, we don't know. But you typically see a good bit of space between the microphone and the mouth. Now let's look for Live Singer. Proper technique would be like this, with the microphone directly in front of the mouth, very close to the mouth. That's what's happening here. The microphone is very close to the mouth on these singers. We're going to use this reverb here to help pull them away from it just a little bit. It's going to make their sound a little softer, but it's really going to help out the tone as we go forward. So let's listen to this.
Is victory, all praise will rise to Christ our King.
I'm going to turn it off. That's a very direct signal sound. Back on. Okay. So that's my male vocal sound right there. Here's what I want to do is I want to start to add these three things together now and show you what I'm looking at. So I'm going to pull down the pads. I'm going to pull down the acoustic guitar. I'm going to pull down, in this case, all of my tracks except for the kick, and that's it. I'm going to start with the kick to, let's see, female and male vocal. All right. But what I'm going to do is over here on my post, my main output on the post, I've got a level meter. Okay, this is just a stock one. And I'm going to leave my kick at 0 on my fader, and I'm just going to see what my level is here. So I'm going to hit play. All right, -9.5. Okay, what I want to do is I want to bring my bass guitar up so that I'm going from -9.5 to -6.5. I want to add 3 decibels. Graham Cochran from the Recording Revolution did a video on this, and he grabbed it from somebody else. But making sure whatever when you add 3 decibels of volume, you are effectively doubling the sound. This makes sure that our kick and our bass are putting out the same amount of energy. So let's see here. -9. I'm going to bring up this bass guitar. All right. So I was at 6.3 there. So I hit -6.3. What this tells me is that now the kick and the bass are putting out roughly the same amount of energy. Now look, I had to get the bass guitar at almost +3 dB, let's say +2.5, to get it to sound appropriate. So I'm actually going to bring this down to 0. And I'm just going to come over to, in this case, this plugin, the last plugin in the chain, and I'll increase it by 2.5 dB. And let's see what we get there. So I saw -5 at one point, so I'm gonna bring that half dB out. Just do 2. Okay, now if we have bass and vocal, we can have a track. So we're just gonna start to add the male vocal in with these kick and bass and see what we get to. Now our tendency is to do this and bring it way up. I want it to sit in the mix. Listen to this though, if I turn that verb off, it's just a bit too direct, so I'm gonna leave that on. Okay, now what I get to start doing is going through and just setting general EQ and compression settings like I would on a channel strip. So I'm going to pause here and we'll come back in just a second. All right, so we've got all of our EQ and compression set here on all of our tracks. Next thing I want to do is take a look at this acoustic guitar with you so that you can see what I'm doing with this. Now, if you remember, we duplicated the track from left to right. So we have 2 tracks now for acoustic guitar. I have put a 14 millisecond delay on the right track, but I want to set the EQ on the left one because this is our main one. So let's open up this EQ, let's hit play, and let's see what we get from a sound perspective. Okay, you can see the low rumble here. What I'm going to do is drop this out. So I make it thin, and then I add the body back in. Finding kind of that tunnel sound, that honky sound, just dropping it a little bit there. Let's go for some pick sound. Just a little bit right there, sounds good. And let's bring up top end here. Probably a little much, let's bring that down 4 dB. Okay, let's hear before. And after. It might seem a little bright right now. But we're getting ready to thicken it up with a second guitar, so let's take a look at that. All I do now is I drag and drop my EQ over here. So now we have a duplicated EQ on our other track. What we're going to do is actually take out this top end boost that we did, and we're going to take out this other one, the pick sound. I'm going to go, if you look at this, we want to be at least a 3 dB swing to be audible, preferably 4 dB swing. So if this is plus 2.6, I can go to -1, and that's actually going to give roughly a 4 dB swing there. The top end one was +4, so we just brought that to 0. And now this mid-range scoop is actually something I want to leave. And so that's going to, that's because that's removing kind of bad frequencies. I don't want to overlap on those. So let's hear what we get now with just our acoustics, just like this. We'll bring the second one up to 0 and bring this volume down just since it's going to be a little bit louder now. Here we go. Let's hit play. So that's the one acoustic. That's the second acoustic. So we're adding more of that mid-range and bottom end back in with this acoustic guitar right channel. Now it's delayed a little bit, and if we want to hear the fruits of our labor with that 14 millisecond delay, let's pan these hard left and hard right, and we're really going to get a nice image here. So this is mono, and then stereo. All right, the next thing we want to do is compression, because we've got to keep on rolling here. All right, we're just going to take the standard compressor here. This is really just dropped on here, 2-to-1 ratio. We're going to put our threshold all the way up. We've got a 15 millisecond attack and 120 millisecond release. This is literally just stock settings. Hit play. We're going to pull out just a couple dB here. All right, so that's about 3 dB that we're pulling out. That's a good start. Now we're going to use a Renaissance axe, and this will really help to make this guitar shine and be nice and controlled. So let's hit play. We got a level match. So we go before, after. It's a little louder. Let's bring it down. All right, now what you might notice is with our volumes at the same rate, we hear the left one and the right one is kind of an afterthought. So the last thing I want to do is actually bring this left channel down probably 2.5 dB. And let's see what that sounds like now. You'll hear the audio shift back to the middle of your head. Let's go back to 0. It's a little left heavy. But watch this, when I hit enter, it takes it back to the center. So it gives you a true chorus stereo effect with your acoustic guitar. So the next thing we need to do now is build a mix. So we're going to take this setting with our acoustic guitar. We're going to drop it down. We are then going to go back to what we had with just vocal and kick and bass. We're going to start to build our mix. Let's get to it. All right, I'm going to bring up the overhead on the drums. My ride cymbal. Snare bottom. That electric guitar. Acoustic. Pads. Female vocal. Let's bring up the male vocal some. All right, so real quick now, once we've got our EQ and compression set, you can see how we can quickly build a mix. Now, what I've learned is that my tendency is to push the vocals too hot at this point. And then as I start to bring the levels up using my limiters and so on and so forth, my vocals just are way out of the mix. So they might seem a little distant right now. Part of that is because we've got that true verb on their tracks here. To help soften them up. So actually, if I take the true verb off and just listen to that right now, let's see what we get. This is the exact same mix. Just listen to the vocals here. Let me turn it back on. Off. Do you hear how the middle of the voice, to declare your, that gets it gets way more present, that throaty sound, but we soften it up by using this reverb on here. All right. So again, when we were listening to the vocal just by itself and we put that reverb on there, it got a little softer and it got a little reverby. But now that we're in the context of a mix and we've got pads and electric guitar and acoustic and drums, it tends to fit really nicely. Now, we haven't even added verb on the band, so I want to do that in just a minute. First, I want to hit my main output with a compressor. Now, I am using, in this case, an H compressor. And again, my settings, I'm running a 4:1 ratio. I've got a 40 millisecond attack, which is a pretty slow attack, but I'm running a fast release, as quick as release as I can. I just drag it all the way down. All right. And I'm going to start out with my output being at 0, so that there's no output gain added. And I want to pull out maybe 2 dB. This is the biggest part of this song, I believe the biggest part of this whole service. So I'm going to hit play. Turn it on. Push this a little bit. There we go. Nope, a little much there. All right, so this looks pretty good. I'm going to compare. I'm just going to add back in a half dB. Off. On. And really what it's going to do is just kind of glue that mix together a little bit. We're not going to hear much of a difference at this point, but it's going to aid in controlling the sound as we keep going. So when I use compression, especially for production like this, because you can see we've got a compressor on the male vocal, a second compressor on the vocal, and then we're going to be running through a compressor on the main out, and then we're going to be running through a limiter. The goal is little bits at a time so that you don't actually hear any one compressor squashing or pumping. You want to slowly take off 1, 2, maybe 3 dB here and there, that it can really bring the levels up, keep them nice and controlled, but still keep a dynamic performance that has life to it. All right. So we want to start to add some reverb to these instruments, and we're going to do that individually. So we're actually going to come back over here, and we have our band verb. So I'm going to start with my bass. I'm going to solo my bass, and I'm going to play the same track we're on and add a little bit of reverb on the bass. Band verb, please. All right, now that's a little verby. So I'm going to cut that in half. Off. Back on. All right. I don't need much on the bass. It can get really overpowering. I'm going to add the exact same amount to the kick. So there we go. And I know that that's going to be fine. All right, now we're going to go to snare. I'm just going to drag that over, but I'm going to add a considerably more amount. You hear that widen up. This is off. And then back on. All right, this is my overhead. Floor tom. We never added floor tom in this mix. Let's hear what this sounds like. Yeah, just enough there. We don't need quite as much on the floor tom. And then here's our ride. So I want to keep in mind that I'm getting some bleed from my ride cymbal into my vocal mics and maybe even around into my electric guitar mic. So I don't need to add much reverb because we're going to get some of that just ambient sound getting picked up. Other thing I want to do here is on my drums, just add a slight bit of compression, make sure that they are controlled. Let's do that. loosen that up some. Just really for the big hits. All right, let's go electric guitar. He has such a wet sound already, but this will help when we get to the end of the mix. So I'm just going to drag my bass guitar one, which is a minimal amount of verb, and let's see what we get. Okay. Acoustic guitar, we're going to send both of them into it. Pads, I'm going to take the amount of the bass guitar. They're pretty swirly already. Alright, let's add vocals in. Now we've got a different reverb for vocals. So we're going to go to the Vox verb. Now that's very verby, so I'm going to bring this down. This is no verb. Verb on. So it's adding that tail. This setting, I'm glad you asked. This is a Renaissance verb, R verb, but any verb will do. And I've got a 4-second delay. So it's a huge tail, 4-second tail. It's running at 18 millisecond pre-delay. But by the time we actually hear it, it's so buried in the mix that it's just adding a nice tail to the end of their words to connect from phrase to phrase. That's what we're using it for. And this is really the only verb outside of what we have on their channel that is going to be heard right now. One thing to keep in mind, this technique of putting a verb on the actual channel here, this true verb, is that verb is going into a reverb. Which seems preposterous. But that's just what I found tends to work. And so this is what my vocals sound like here. No verb. Alright, and then I put it in the mix. We're going to check this, make sure we're not changing our compression settings. Because if you think about it, you've added a little piece of an extra mix in for each instrument now back into this mix by creating that reverb. All right, the next thing we're going to do is add some imaging here. So this S1 imager is not turned on yet, and we're going to hear what it sounds like at 0. And typically what I found is this 165% seems to work well. But let's kick this thing on. This is no widening. So that's straight up the middle. And wide. So it's going to take your instruments that are really out to the sides and widen them out. The one last thing I want to do is start to build some. Everything right now is just down the middle, so I want to take and actually adjust my pads, and I want my pads to be just a little bit to the right. I want my electric guitar just to be a little bit to the left. But what I'm going to do with my electric guitar is actually add an effect here. It's going to be a delay. And I'm going to just color it the same because it's going to end up... all right, stream EG delay. So what I have is a dub delay, which is just a preset on here that's kind of doubling. And let's hear what it sounds like. I'm going to put these into a bus channel. There we go. EG bus. I'm going to bring the delay, well, I'll just leave it like it is for right now. And let's see what it sounds like. Just go into this delay channel here. Let's bring that one up top. There we go. We want this to be all the way to the right. So I'm actually not even trying to match timing or anything like that. It's literally just kind of it's just doubling the sound. If I go back to the stock plugin, let's see, or the stock setting, that's going to be here. Dub delay. Now this one has a bunch of feedback in it, so listen to this. So if I stop it, listen to the tail. You hear that thing still going? And still going. I don't need that much. Also, I use some of the built-in EQ and filter. So if I go back, this is what my settings are. So I knocked the feedback down to about 30%, and I raised the low pass up to 160, and I was happy with that sound. Now I am getting a duplicated raw sound, and with most of my effects, I want to add some reverb. So this is actually, I believe, a copy of the true verb from a vocal track, and I'm just adding this true verb in here. So if I turn it on, so what that's doing is giving me a reverb sound on the delay, and it's way over to the right. So now what I can do is just kind of place this into the mix and see what it sounds like. So let's unmute everybody and hit play. So that's too much, you hear that? Listen on that right here. I'm gonna bring it down. All right, so I'm happy with that. I'm gonna keep on rolling. So the next thing that I need to do now, at this point, what I have is a basic mix set at the loudest point of this entire service. I need to hide all my plugins. I need to hide all of my faders because we're no longer going to use them. We're going to build automation from here on out. We always want to build the chorus of, or the biggest part of the song or the service, because then we need to use automation to raise up the quiet parts in the beginning of the song and actually build our automation. So this is a bit more of an extensive portion. I might turn this on and keep recording so you can see what I'm doing, but it's trying to find the lead parts in the songs and what is the most supporting material and raise them up. So if I go to the beginning of this song here, this is actually just one song, I am going to zoom in. Now before I get started, one of the things I know that I need to add in is going to be, I need to add an automation track. You can see it's even already there. Automation, it doesn't matter where I put it. I tend to drag it up here because it's going to be used for pads and for acoustic guitar. So I'm going to come in here. I can add And I need to find my acoustic guitar bus. There we go. And I'm going to add a volume track there. I also want to find my pad bus and do a volume track there, because those are two of the main things that I'm going to be automating here. Everything else can be automated on the actual channel. So if I need to change a vocal volume level, I can do that right on their channel, adjust any of their effects right on the channel. But with the acoustic guitar, because we're running a bus and pads, a bus, we want to keep those just adjusted by an automation bus. So I'm going to hit on automation up here, top left, and now I pretty much zoom all the way in. I do want to fade these pads in because we tend to have some pad signal ahead of time. So let's look at that. I can select those two. This is just going to give us kind of an easy ramp in to our pad sound. Let's hear what it sounds like. So you can hear how the pads are very overpowering compared to the acoustic and the electric. But what we want to do is go ahead and just bring up our automation here for the acoustic guitar. So we're going to find acoustic. I don't want to change my pad sound necessarily. So the next thing I do is I look for where the musician gets big, which is going to be right over in this area. So I know that our mix is going to be pretty good in the big area. We just need to make the softer stuff louder. I'm also going to cap it at the beginning of the song there, so as I bring this up, it's not going to impact any previous song. So let's see what this sounds like. We'll work on this fade out in a minute. Let's just hear this now. Okay, and down here. Okay, so we've got acoustic guitar in there. We're probably going to click on here and just let it slowly decay as he grows. We're kind of mixing in the opposite manner here. Let's hit this electric guitar. I need to add, actually, since electric guitar is running a bus. Let's see. E.g. bus. Volume, and you can see electric guitar here. He starts out with kind of these intro licks that he's playing, so I just want to bring him up a touch on the bus like that, just to make him heard at the beginning. I'm actually going to bring him up even more when that acoustic comes in. We'll bring up the male vocal as well because he starts out pretty soft, so we'll scoot down here. Now this is a case where I hit automation and automatically I can turn on the volume here for this track, and now we've got some automation. I want to look at this part right here. See where the male vocal gets big? I want to check that sound and see how the mix is there. Let's just hit play right there. Alright. That might be okay. So I'm going to bring up everything before that. Seems a little faint to me, but again, I'm trying to live on my natural tendencies of knowing that I like more vocal, but in the end, I'll end up turning it down. All right, let's hear what that sounds like up here.
Once was crowned with thorns, is crowned with glory now.
Sounds pretty good.
Savior now to wash our feet. Now at his feet we bow.
Okay, let's hear this female vocal here.
And shame, now robed in majesty.
She's barely singing.
Radiance of perfect love.
But we want to help that. We want her in there to thicken up this arrangement there.
To see. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name.
Let's hear at the beginning where she comes in.
Now robed in majesty, the radiance of perfect love
It's too much.
now shines for all to see. Your name is victory. All praise will rise.
All right. So what I'm going to do is run through automation in this song. It's going to be a lot of this where I'm listening to stuff, I'm repeating, I'm bumping levels up, testing it, but I'm going to pause, do this, and come back in just a few minutes when I've got that mix, and we can kind of look at what I've done and listen to the different steps, because what I want to get to for you is over here on my main output. I want to get to what I'm doing with MV2 and how I'm limiting to bring the song up to broadcast level, and more importantly, the changes that those plugins will make within the mix that you're building right now. All right, so what I've got here at this point, I will turn on automation. I will kind of shrink this down a touch and make it fit in one window so you can see. So here's the beginning of the song to the end of the song, and I've made a couple changes here on a few instruments. This is still a little bit big here. There we go. So I made no changes on the kick, on the snare bottom mics, a couple changes on overhead, floor tom, nothing on the ride. Bass was fine. Electric guitar, remember I'm running an automation channel just below it, which is automation for pad bus, electric guitar bus, and acoustic guitar bus. So you won't see any automation changes made there. But then down here at the very bottom, you can see some changes on the male vocal and the female vocal. So at this point, the mix is good. I'm happy with how this sounds. And what I need to do now is start to bring the levels up to a production or a broadcast level. My first plugin of choice is this MV2 by Waves. It stands for more volume, and it's their second edition of it. So you can see right here what I did last time, and it's kind of a preset that not a preset, but just something that I've saved from last time, a template, if you will. So I boosted the low portion by 12 dB. Seems aggressive, but we're going to see what we get here. I'm just going to close this up. Again, I'm going to turn this plugin on in a second, and we're going to see what the difference it makes. So if I just hit play here. Now this is the very beginning of the song. It's very soft, but listen to this when I turn this plugin on. Here's with it off. So what gets raised? To me, I hear the pads, kind of that low mid-range, getting really increased. And so what I want to do is just quickly, with this plugin on, this is where I start to address what my actual changes need to be. And you can see I put a little, I've already did this real quick and then I realized I wasn't recording anymore. So I'm going to hit and turn that back on. So here's my volume automation now at the beginning with my low portion brought up, and we can even watch this on here, just kind of move around as it's doing its thing. So here's the beginning of the song. Here we go. Actually, I gotta pause. I hear people talking in the beginning, and I think it's these drum mics picking it up. So I'm going to just clip some of that stuff out here. Right, when you've got a bunch of microphones that are just live mics, clip out that, fade that in, and then I'll take these because clearly I'm not playing anything there, and I will bring this in. I keep saying myself, I was playing drums on this service, so that's why I keep saying myself. Let's see here. Yeah, nothing else. Maybe these. I can bring the vocal mics in. And she even doesn't sing until later on. There we go. Let's see how that works now at the beginning of the song.
Was crowned with thorns, is crowned with glory now. The Savior now to wash our feet. Now at his feet we bow.
Let's hear when the female vocal gets added in.
Sin and shame, now robed in majesty, the radiance of light. Now at his feet we bow. Sin and shame, now robed in majesty, the radiance of perfect love.
All right, I'm going to help her out here real quick, and let's just watch this as I do it really fast. She's a little flat on the pitch. Let's just solo her out and take a listen here.
Now robed in majesty, radiance of perfect love.
All right, so it's just the radiance, the word radiance, which I think is right here.
Radiance of perfect.
All right, so she comes back in. So what I'm going to do is actually, all right, turn off my snap there. I got to find it again.
So perfect.
All right, she comes right on after perfect. So this and here. What I can do is actually open up my inspector window and tune right here. I'm going to try. You can take it up by cents. If you know what tuning is, you're either flat or sharp by 5, 10, 15, 25, 75 cents. It has no relationship to $1, but let's hear what this sounds like now We've raised it up. Ah, there we go. 25 cents, magic number. Let's hear what it sounds like with him now.
The radiance of perfect love.
Much better. All right, let's hear what it sounds like not soloed with the band. Here we go.
The radiance of perfect love.
Radiance still might be a little low. Let's check it.
The radiance of
Yeah, I don't want to get so surgical, but if I can bring her pitch up just a little bit more right here, let's go, say, 35 cents. That's going to be close enough. It's a passing moment, but when I hear things like that, it only takes a couple seconds to really help that pitch lock in, and then they feel great when they hear it in the mix. And because this is going to be broadcast and recorded, all that stuff, I do have Waves Tune Lite, which I have used plenty of times, but in this case, just a quick fix. It doesn't need to have a whole other plugin added. All right, so here we go.
one who wore our sin and shame, now robed in majesty, the radiance of perfect love now shines for all to see. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. That held us now gives way to him who is
All right, it should get big here in just a second.
his final breath upon the cross is now alive in me. Your name is victory. All praise.
All right, so you can see this level meter up here that I've got up. It just dropped back down, but it was holding around -5. What I want to do is use a limiter, and this limiter is on my post, and this limiter is going to be used to get the level up to where the loud sections are actually at -0.2 dB. So that's my ceiling on the right-hand side. And then the left one, I'm just going to drag the threshold down until we get where we want to be. So let's back it up just a touch, and we'll hit play.
Final breath upon the cross.
And this is really going to push our volume up to the broadcast level that we're looking for. So you want to wait till it gets big.
Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ resurrecting me.
All right, so in here you can see that I've got a -1. I've taken out a dB on the very top of my ceiling. You could see that it hit up in this kind of 200 hertz range, and that's pretty standard. That's bass guitar, cajon, kind of growing together, and that's a pretty normal spot to hit a limiter on. What I like about this multi-maximizer is that it is set up like a multi-band EQ or multi-band compressor, so it can really tell you and identify and limit just specific sections and not the entire track, but just frequencies in that track. So I'm going to just turn this on and listen to it here for a second and just run my automation, because I'm already hearing where this vocal, for example, gets too loud. I automated him up. You can see that male vocal gets louder here, but he got a little too hot in the mix. So I'm going to turn my mic off, just listen to this track, automate, and you can watch what I'm doing.
The head that once was crowned with thorns is crowned with glory now. The Savior now to wash our feet. Now at his feet we bow. The one who wore our sin and shame, now robed in majesty. tomb where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3 days. His body there would not. Tomb where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3. The tomb where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3 days. His body there would not remain. Our God is robbed the grave. Your name is victory. Your name is victory. God has robbed the grave. Has robbed the grave. Your name. Our God is robbed the grave. Your name is victory. Your praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. Your praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit, I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrected me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrected me. The resurrected King is resurrected me. The resurrected King is resurrecting me.
All right, guys, so that's the mix right there. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I do want to take this true verb that I've got on the main out, and you can see I'm adding just a little bit of reverb, even more, because what I've found is that when I print this out and I listen to it on my phone or in the TV, it still is sometimes a little harsh. So let's hear what this sounds like. We'll go to this big section for just a second.
Your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. The resurrected King is resurrecting me.
So you can see I can turn off the early reflection or the reverb, and the early reflection is really what's making the biggest change in this. Let me turn these both off. We'll go back to right where we were. I'm going to hit play, and then I'll bring them both on one at a time. You can hear the difference. Listen for that early reflection when I turn it on. It really softens the mix up, and that way it just translates a little bit better. Let's hear that. Early reflection. And the reverb. So I think that the early reflection is a little much. It's killing a little bit too much of my stuff, so I dropped it down once. I'm going to drop it down a little bit more here. Just again, maybe negative 19.5. Let's see. And I'm going to take that about 50 and this minus 20 one more time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and print this. I'm going to stick it onto my phone. I'm going to listen to it in multiple sources. And then I've got, obviously, the first 2 songs to mix. But it's the same process. Thanks for checking this out. I hope it helps on some level. I know it's a longer video, but I wanted you guys to be able to see the whole process from start to finish. And yeah, and hopefully this helps you guys out. If you've got questions, shoot them in the comments. I'd love to assist you in any way I can. And we will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.